New York City is exporting homeless people to other states and abandoning them. Chicago is running solitary confinement for children in grade schools when they're naughty. And Los Angeles is seeing the resurgence of medieval diseases. Welcome, my friends, to the nightmare dystopia. On today's episode, I have for you even more chilling story. Chinese agents, we believe, we don't know for sure, but assailants entered the Epoch Times in Hong Kong, a paper that has been pretty, they've given pretty positive coverage to the Hong Kong resistance protests. Well, these assailants showed up and torched the printing press. For those that aren't familiar, the Epoch Times is associated, I believe, with the Falun Gong movement. There's some controversy around that, I suppose, but for the most part, they're a fairly credible outlet. They get a very similar rating from the NewsGuard rating agency to CNN. I know it's not saying a lot, but CNN.com is very different from, say Brian Stelter or Don Lemon. And the fact is, I'm not saying that because I know a lot of people are going to be like, CNN's awful, that's not a good thing. No. But in terms of how the mainstream, uninitiated political people view it, Epoch Times is considered on par with CNN's, which is a good thing in perception. Now, I personally believe Epoch Times is substantially better than CNN. But they did get criticism because they don't hate the president enough. There was some concern that they didn't include negative information about Trump. So suffice it to say, the Epoch Times does a fairly good job in a lot of ways. And I think the coverage they do is relatively similar to mine. Like, the Orange Man is not that bad, right? Everyone's kind of freaking out. So here's the nightmare dystopia story. We got a few. For one, arson in Hong Kong. Masked men set fire to the Epoch Times in Hong Kong print shop. Staff managed to put out the fire, but only after affecting significant damage. CCP involvement is suspected, given HK Epoch Times' truthful and transparent coverage of the Hong Kong protests. I think it's fair to say we all have a pretty good idea of what's happening in Hong Kong. Freedom-loving protesters who are not perfect, who have done things I've heavily criticized, right? They've beaten people, they've vandalized stuff. They're far from perfect, but this is a group of people fighting for free speech and resisting the Communist Party of China. I absolutely will condemn the violence against civilians, the targeting of individuals who they suspect might be, communist or something. Those are all bad things we would criticize Antifa for. But let's be real. Resisting the Communist Party of China's influence into your country, into your, I guess you could call it, sovereign region. I apologize if I'm not understanding what it is, special economic zone, whatever. Resisting the Communist Party of China is legitimate. Complaining about the Orange Man is somewhat legitimate, but not walking around bashing progressives over that. Like, look, Antifa goes around beating random people. I'm sorry, that has nothing to do with resisting fascism. The Hong Kong protests is substantially more legitimate, though again, can be criticized. Well, you now have suspected involvement from the Communist Chinese Party coming in, and I gotta say, man, this video's crazy. I think, I don't want to play it entirely, but I just want to show you here, for those that are watching, this is a big fire, it damaged. So my understanding is that the printing press is not owned by the Epoch Times. It's like the Epoch Times commissions them. I could be wrong. Here's the nightmare dystopia part. For one, look, we all know that the Chinese government is going to go and try and destroy the free press, right? Guess who else wants to destroy the free press? Would you be surprised if I told you that NBC News Smears Epoch Times, and the Wall Street Journal says its attack on the Epoch Times is in line with Beijing's propaganda demonizing Falun Gong. The NBC News put out a ridiculous smear, and I was surprised to see that Epoch Times got a strike from NewsGuard over the fact that they're not negative about Trump enough. Seriously, NewsGuard, I do not think they're perfect. I use them because to check on my bias, but they said something to the effect that because the Epoch Times regularly covers Trump in a neutral to positive way, they're not showing their difference in opinion, like they're not admitting, or they're conflating opinion with news. It's like, wait, hold on. If Donald Trump goes to, the Mall of America and gives a speech, and I say Donald Trump today showed up at the Mall of America and gave a speech, many people were excited. There you go. What do you want me to do? Apparently, because they didn't say, and there were also protesters, they were rated bad for it. Now, Epoch Times is pretty good. They're biased. That's fine. Everybody has their perspective, but they're far from the worst. And I do think they're way better than CNN. But NBC News came after them, and it was weird. And I think the reason is Epoch Times will tell the truth about Donald Trump. I mean, let's just be honest. Like, there's something weird going on in terms of the nightmare dystopia that we're currently in. And it's mind-blowing to me with all the impeachment stuff, which I am so sick and tired of. And I know all of you are too. Ratings are down. My friends and family are like, no one cares anymore, dude. And I'm like, I know. I don't even know if I'm going to do a video on it later. But there's something crazy in that yesterday, the testimony of Tim Morrison and Volker was completely undermined everything the Democrats said. But I'm not going to get fully into it. I just want to mention, what do I see from all of these people on Twitter? This is damning for Trump. Everything. Oh, this is the worst day for Trump. And I'm like, what are you talking about? These two people testified everything was above board. What's going on? They're trying to control the narrative. There are a lot of people who don't know or care, and they'll just say whatever they think will pander to the tribe instead of looking at the facts objectively. Epoch Times is a problem in that case. Because again, well, I'll stress, they're far from perfect. I don't think anybody's perfect, by all means. Just because I'm giving them praise for doing a pretty good job doesn't mean they've always done everything right. You can criticize them, that's fine. But now we can see, well, look, it's no surprise to anybody that China is going to go torch a printing press, right? But NBC News pulled this off. This was in August. And now for the even more nightmarish story, the real story here. Reuters completely changes article on Hong Kong protesters and issues no correction. This, to me, is the scariest thing. And this is where I think we need to have a serious conversation about the nightmare dystopia we're in. Listen, all of these things happening in these other cities that I mentioned, New York exporting homeless people, the collapse of their public infrastructure. Yeah, there's a lot of bad things happening. And I only mentioned one of these things because I was making a point about how there's some pretty bad stuff happening. I mean, Chicago operates torture facilities. Los Angeles has a drug homeless problem. San Francisco's covered in feces. Yeah, we got a lot of nightmarish dystopian problems. Reuters issuing no correction and changing a story to remove the fact that the Chinese Communist Party was threatening the protesters with live ammunition. That's what they did. And I have to wonder why. I think I can tell you why. These companies want money from China. So let me ask you a question. At what point is this treason? And I mean this seriously, providing aid to an enemy of the United States. Now, we can start here and say, is China a direct enemy of the U.S.? The answer is no, not legally. We know they're our main, antagonist, an opponent in geopolitics. But for as far as legally, we're not at war and they're not an enemy of ours. But there is a question. At what point do we say, when Reuters decides to protect the Chinese Communist Party for cash, that they're acting against the interests of the United States people? They're not informing us. Listen, you want to complain about the horrors of China and the concentration camps they're running. Yeah, absolutely. That's in China. I think we got to do something about it. I don't know what to do, right? And mind you, I'm a very anti-war person, but I'll tell you what, man. When it comes to liberating people from organ harvesting concentration camps, I think that's a justifiable cause, though I'm not sure war is the right answer. I'm just saying, if you're going to tell me we should go drone bomb Yemen because Saudi Arabia pays the bills, I'm going to be like, no, hold on. We don't want to risk World War III because we want to make some cash selling, missiles and bombs to another country who's having a conflict with another region over, access to resources. However, when China's operating a concentration camps that harvest organs, there's a video of them loading Hong Kong protesters onto trains. I think we've got bigger questions that need to be answered, and a real debate needs to happen. But I'll tell you what, man. China's powerful. They're very powerful, and they're going to become more powerful. I don't know what the solution is, and I don't think anybody wants war. But I will ask, legitimately, where is that line? Do we sit back and let them keep doing this? But more worryingly is the fact that Reuters, for whatever reason, I don't know why Reuters did this, changes a headline and removes one of the most damning things to date, threatening the protesters with live ammunition. Check this out. Daily Caller reports. Reuters changed an article about the Hong Kong protests Monday, first highlighting allegations that police were threatening protesters with live bullets, and later omitting any mention of that news. The original article was headlined, Hong Kong police threaten to use live bullets as standoff with protesters escalates. According to an archived version. Published November 17th, the article described the ongoing and escalating violence of the months of Hong Kong protests, noting in the first paragraph that police were escalating threats against rioters. Quote, Hong Kong police threatened on Monday to fire live bullets if rioters did not stop using lethal weapons in the latest flare-up in the anti-government protests that have convulsed the Chinese-ruled city for 5 months. Now, I got to be fair. Okay, the problem was some of the protesters were firing flaming arrows at the police. And the police were basically saying, these have the potential for lethal violence as well as petrol bombs, therefore we will respond in kind. I think escalation's inevitable, and it's worrying. And I'm not saying that all of the protesters are innocent. Of course not. At what point do you escalate from, throwing rocks to firing flaming arrows? I don't know, man. But it's complicated when you're dealing with a country that's got 1 million plus people in organ harvesting concentration camps. If that's the case, just report the news. Why remove that? I don't know. I really don't. I think it may have to do with Reuters having an international group of journalists, and they're scared that they will be restricted in China. Access is everything. There was apparently some Australian guy who was a politician. I don't have the story pulled up, so fact check me on this one. But he said something to the effect of, China, he insulted, he criticized them over a lot of the stuff. So they said he can't come unless he apologizes. And he says, no way, I'm not going to apologize. China is growing out of control. The things they're doing around the world are becoming nightmarish. The things they're doing in Hong Kong are what nightmares are made of. So I can joke about New York's homeless problem, which is disturbing. Chicago's children's solitary confinement, really disturbing. Los Angeles' drug, homeless, and feces crisis, also very, very disturbing. But I'll tell you what, man, organ harvesting concentration camps takes that cake. So yeah, I can jokingly complain. I mean, half joking, like these are serious problems in the U.S. we got to deal with. I guess the orange man is so bad that we can't focus on these real problems. Fine. And the orange man is so bad, we're not going to deal with organ harvesting concentration camps. That to me is mind blowing. And that's why I'm leading today with this big story. It's actually really scary to me that a company, a news agency would say, instead of informing the American people, Reuters is headquartered in Times Square, the Thomson Reuters building. Instead of informing the American people as to what's going on, we need the access to China. They got money. Look at what those NBA, I can't remember the NBA. I'm not a fan of the NBA. But look at how fast they bend the knee to China for that sweet, sweet one. That's scary. China is doing you know what, man? All of these companies, they want to claim that they're all about social justice or whatever. No, man. You want to talk about BDS boycotting Israel? China is operating organ harvesting concentration camps. Something needs to be done. And I don't know what the answer is, because I don't know if there's a strong enough, I don't know if war would be the answer. Maybe I'm definitely jumping the gun on this one. Maybe hard diplomacy, sanctions. I got to say it, man. Trump is trying to, take China to task. He really is. And I'll tell you this. I don't know if what he's going to do is what he's doing will work, if it's right or wrong. There's a lot of subsidies now being paid to farmers because of the trade war, and there's a lot of negatives. But I'll tell you what, when Trump said China had to be taken on, he was right. And I'll tell you what the problem is. If you got a problem with that, and I don't I can talk about the Saudi Arabia stuff and disagree with Trump on a lot of things. When it comes to trade with China, man, I don't know, right or wrong, I have no idea. I can point out some of the criticisms, but I really just don't know. So I'll tell you what, if you're somebody who hates the president, doesn't like Trump, you should have focused on the growing threat of China a long time ago, and you didn't. And in fact, Obama and Hillary Clinton wanted to give them more with the TPP. You see what's happening with this country, and they're growing out of control, and something needs to be done about it. So these people who are screeching that the orange man is bad, I'm like, listen, man, like most presidents, they have problems. Obama had a ton of problems. He prosecuted more whistleblowers who leaked to journalists than all other presidents combined. Donald Trump, in my opinion, has taken some foreign policy actions that I really disagree with, and I think there really are leadership issues. The president should not be tweeting during an impeachment inquiry, right? Impeachment hearing. The White House should not be posting these things. This is exactly what gets Trump into these problems and opens up the door for the Democrats to waste time. So Trump is deserving of some of that, criticism. He's responsible for some of this. I mean, think about it. If Trump just had one of his people make that phone call about investigating Burisma and the Bidens, we wouldn't be in this mess. But Trump is a guy who says, I'm going to do it. I know it's best. And look, I get it. That's why a lot of people like him. I can understand that. And I think in some ways there are good things about having someone who's willing to take charge, especially as I'm talking about China. But in the end, I think for me, I will say something needs to be done about this. At least Trump is doing something. I don't know if it's right or wrong because I am not an expert in those areas. And I've heard criticism and praise based on what Trump is doing. So what do you want me to say about it? All I can tell you is, hey man, for the longest time, our leaders sat by while this problem grew like a dangerous, I don't know what to call it. I got to be careful about what the words I say, but it is getting worse. And at a certain point, we see what they're doing to their people. We see media companies bending over backwards. They removed it, said the article was updated Monday. Now it reads like a different post with no paragraph, the same as original. The headline now is a Hong Kong university, a daring escape but fears of bloodshed. There's nothing on this article that mentions anything about an update or a correction. It just says November 17th, a day ago. Can you see the URL? Look at the URL up top. Hong Kong police threaten to use live bullets as standoff with protesters escalates. All right. Live bullets doesn't even appear in the article at all anymore. I can't tell you why that is. Someone at Reuters might say, oh, no, we routinely change the URL of our stories to completely different stories. Maybe that's the case. I have no idea. But I will tell you, man, you want to talk about impeachment? You are blind and you are wasting time. The things that Donald Trump are doing are nowhere near as bad as what China is doing. Just the other day, AFP put out a story about 100,000 children in immigration detention. And then they said they were going to delete it because it turns out, oh, that was Obama's number. Delete it? You mean issue a correction? This is news. The UN said this. Leave it up. Change it to Obama. Nope. The orange man is bad. Heavens, people coming to our country knowing they will be detained or returned to Mexico, and they still choose to do it. They're saying that's the worst thing in the world. AOC goes on MSNBC and says, these are concentration camps. Excuse me? Are you paying attention to China right now? I am disgusted by this. It is mind-blowing to me that, I'll tell you what, man. The worst thing about the president is that he is brash and arrogant, and everybody knows that about Trump. And he's got a potty mouth. And I'll tell you, when it comes to policy, you can debate it. He says bad words, and he's a mean guy, and he does things the way he wants to do them. Is that really the worst thing about the president? Oh, they'll say, but what about the concentration camps, Tim? You mean the ones that Obama built that had more kids in them than Trump did? Look, I get it, man. It's bad. I agree. But come on, you weren't here for Obama when Obama was doing this. And then when I try and bring it up, you go, that's whataboutism. No, it's not whataboutism. It's you being duplicitous. It's me pointing out that you're a hypocrite and a liar. And instead of talking about these problems, like when I was talking about them during the Obama years, when I made videos about the NDAA, which is still on my main channel, you can read, about the AUMF, about prosecuting whistleblowers, you said nothing. You clapped and cheered as your president did all of these things. And now that Trump does things that are in line with what past presidents have done, you're screeching at the top of your lungs. Fine, I don't care if you want to protest the president. But come on, man. Okay, what's happening in China is damn near nightmarish dystopia. And I mean that literally. I can joke about the US, but this is nuts. And now I'm worried seeing NBC News and Reuters seemingly getting in line with the Communist Party of China. So you know what? I'll say it, I have no problem. And if in 10 years China takes over the world because these people are screeching about Orange Man and they do nothing to stop the encroaching insanity of the Chinese Communist Party, when they're paying off the NBA, when they're paying off video game companies, and they're seeping in to every aspect of this world, they will become the dominant power. They will take over. And then you know what? Fine. Maybe the communists will string me up, but I will say it now. Something needs to be done about this. They are harvesting organs. You can see these camps from space, okay? Meanwhile, you're sitting there saying, but the Orange Man is the second coming of Hitler. Shut up. Just stop, okay? Man, there are real problems in this world, and we're facing it down, okay? You want to complain about Donald Trump saying, the enemy of the people, the press. Aw, poor babies. You got insulted? People who we believe may be associated, at least in favor of the Communist Party of China, just torched a printing press. And you know what? It comes a few months after NBC News joined the Smear Fest against a news outlet because they have some people who believe I don't know, they have a religious group that runs part of the company. Man, I'll tell you what, I think we're doomed. I really do. Because nothing's going to stop China. They are powerful. And they are paying people off, and it's very easy. China goes to these NBA guys and says, don't insult us. We got money for you. And what do? They say, hey man, leave China alone. Dude, NBA bros, I can't remember your names, but you are literally defending a country that is harvesting the organs of people based on their religion, locking them in concentration camps. We know where you would be in World War II. To all those people who claim that Trump is pure evil running concentration camps, I know where you would be in World War II as well. You wouldn't be dealing with the actual problem. You'd be ignoring it. You'd be complaining about some dumb domestic issue. Meanwhile, overseas, in a massive country with 1 billion people, they are gaining power. They are putting pressure on the South China Sea. They are invading the territory of other sovereign nations. They are locking up their own people in re-education camps, where they also happen to be like, hey, you got an extra kidney, I can just take it. Yeah. And then you have the nerve to call us right-wing, fascist, or whatever. Nice try, dude. Nice try. It's mind-blowing to me to see people on the left defending the police in Hong Kong and defending the Communist Party of China. There is no grounds for this, period. We know what they're doing. So you know what, man? I can open this video with a funny joke about the nightmare dystopia, but who's going to do anything about this? I honestly don't know. I really don't. Trump, I guess? Is Trump, is his plan perfect? I don't know, man. I'll tell you what. If you don't like what he's doing, then the worst thing you can say is that Trump is doing it wrong, but at least he's doing something, all right? I think a really big issue for me, coming into 2020 is who's going to stand up to China. And I'll tell you what, this problem cannot be ignored any longer. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all there.